a man called from the office and said, "Can you come home and work on the bid team? We got a bid a project in Mississippi." I said, "No, sir, I'm sorry, I can't. This girl invited me to go snow skiing, and she's really good looking. I'm going snow skiing." He said, "Oh, okay, I get it," and hung up. It wasn't 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. It was my father, and he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, this girl invited me to go snow skiing." He said, "Tell her no, you got to come home and bid the job." And I said, "Oh, okay."
Welcome to Conversations Around the Corner, where we talk to construction executives about who they are and how they got there, inspiring the next generation of construction leaders. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt. Our guest today is Rob Burton, President and CEO of Hoar Construction. A native of Alabama, he attended Auburn and then worked his way through many positions at the company. Hoar Construction is consistently among the top of ENR's top contractors in the U.S. In our conversation today, we talk about Rob's dream hunting gun, developing a leadership training program, and the number one thing to do to move into upper management. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
I do have a farm, and I enjoy, the outdoors, and my father, at his retirement, purchased a piece of property that we enjoyed a lot. But I'm a city boy who wished I was in the country.
Where's your farm? Is it down there in Alabama?
Yeah, it's here in Alabama. It's out in the country, about an hour outside of town, borders a national forest. We just enjoy everything outdoors, hunting, fishing, hiking, canoeing, relaxing.
Yeah. So do you use it mainly for recreation, or do you actually farm it as well?
Well, no, it's mainly recreation. We do manage and farm pine trees and that kind of thing, but no other crops.
What's your main hunting activity down on that farm?
I love quail hunting. So I've got some bird dogs, and I really enjoy watching the dogs work. And for a long time, I was really into horses. Getting a little old for that, but I still have a couple of horses that I enjoy petting.
Yeah. I have a dog as well that I pheasant hunt with. We've never done any quail, but pheasant hunting is kind of our main activity. The last couple of years, we've just, out in western states here in South Dakota, we've had such terrible weather that the pheasant population has been so down that the pheasant hunting's been terrible the last couple of years.
I've heard that. I haven't been out there in a long time. I used to go with a group of friends to Montana every September, and we would hunt Hungarian partridge and sharp-tailed grouse.
Yeah.
Just walking outside and enjoying a beautiful day is fine, whether you find birds or not. But
yeah, it definitely is more enjoyable when it's your own dog that you're hunting with.
Isn't it true? I mean, just see those dogs, how much they want to please you, and their ability to single out, that one bird you're looking for out of all the other wildlife out there. It's pretty amazing.
Did you train your dogs yourself, or did you send them away to have them trained?
We send them off. I have had one dog that I would say I influenced some, but to say I trained a dog is a stretch.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. So do you have a couple kids? Is that right?
I have 4 children from 32 to, I think, about 24. 2 boys, 2 girls, 4 grandchildren.
All right. Do your kids hunt with you? You got your grandchildren out there with you yet?
Yeah, no, they're too young for that. All the grandchildren are under 3 years old. But yeah, my children all enjoy the outdoors. Not everyone cares about hunting.
Right.
But everybody enjoys the outdoors, either hiking or fishing or whitewater rafting, just anything outside. And then the boys like to hunt more. But it's getting to be the same thing. Everybody's busy with young children.
Yeah, yeah.
When you were young, you started working construction at Hoar when you were 13. You remember that first job, and what were you doing?
My father took me out to the eastern part of the city on a project where they were going to add on to a hotel. It was Motel Birmingham. And the project is still out there. I think about it every time I drive by it. I'm not positive that I was even technically on Hoar's payroll at that time because that might have been illegal.
Yeah, free labor.
But he did drop me off, and my job was to cut up sod. The area we were building or adding to was out in a beautiful lawn that was out back, and it had this wonderful lawn of thick grass. And so they sent a machine out there to cut up that sod. And my job was to take an axe and chop the sod into the appropriate lengths and then stack it on a pallet.
Oh, nice.
And that's what I did all summer. It was definitely difficult work.
So you meet a lot of characters on job sites. Do you have any that were memorable from your childhood, or you were struck by the fact that these are adult men on a job site?
Yeah, there are quite a lot of that. I worked all of my young career in summers and even Christmas and a couple of times through spring break. So it was a little bit like growing up on a farm. You just were expected to work. So yeah, you meet some characters. I'm not sure I can tell you the stories about those people. I know that one time I was working on a project in Hoover, and they called me White Spot because I was the only Caucasian on the project, and so they teased me a lot, and eventually we all became good friends, and I really enjoyed the people. So again, some of the stories are a little too racy for what you wanted, what you're trying to accomplish here. But
how do you think that environment, being a young kid on a job site, formed your view of work and career and your job at Hoar?
Oh, it had a big impact, and I do wish I could tell you some of those stories, but the men that I worked with were, they were a bit crazy. It was a different culture. There were some men on the job that tried to see what they could get away with and how much they could not work. And then there was other men that really cared and wanted to work and wanted to do a good job and cared deeply about doing quality work. And I've always known that what I'd say around here is, the rubber meets the road out there in the field, and that's our business. That's where we make money. That's really important. I eventually commissioned, much later when I was president, and I commissioned an artist to paint these men that I remember working with. And it's not exactly them, but if you come into our lobby, there's a big, bold painting of men at work in the field, and they're obviously looking for information. They're not productive at the moment. This big man with a sledgehammer over his shoulder waiting to go do something, and another few men are looking at drawings. And that's what I wanted to remind everybody when they come in the lobby is, we work for them, not the other way around. We can't get anything done if we're not providing the information and the ability and the equipment and the process to allow them to go do what they do.
Right. Obviously, growing up was a big part of your life. You said you kind of always did it. You were always expected to work. Did you put your kids through the same type of work program when they were growing up?
Not really, no. I would have if I could have, but the culture has changed a lot. My children were in sports and they loved their sports. In this day and time, coaches have kind of gone overboard and start taking up all their summers with summer workouts and things like that. It's a little crazy. I had one coach where I said, look, I really want my son to have a job. And he said, well, he's working for me this summer. And I said, it's not the same thing at all. You don't pay. And I want him to be able to work, so change the schedule. He said, I'm not changing the schedule, and it doesn't matter whether your son works or not. It matters if he works for me.
Yeah. Wow.
So, the culture of the country and sports has gone a little overboard.
Yeah. I resonate with that a little bit. I have an 8-year-old who's in traveling soccer, and it's amazing what they're doing at 8 years old already. They love it, and it's hard work. It's just a different type of hard work. The
bottom line is that cultures are different and generations are different, and all of my children have grown up to have a good work ethic, and they do a good job, and it doesn't have to be the same way. So they've learned that all of this is important.
So from your childhood work, what do you think the best job was and the worst job that you had?
I worked in a factory while I was in college. It was a company called Diversified Products. They made a lot of sports equipment, and that's the only job I ever quit. I stood on an assembly line and took weights off the assembly line and put them in a box. And that's all I did all day long, and it's so repetitive, and so I was bored stiff. I just couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the change and the variety of what goes on in construction. So most of my jobs were in one way or another out in the field in construction or associated with construction. I did have to undo live sanitary lines.
Oh, man.
That was quite unpleasant.
How old were you then?
I was probably 18.
Oh, man.
It sounds like your dad threw you right into some of these jobs that weren't necessarily the easiest. Did he actually control some of the jobs that you were taking, or was that kind of another manager?
No, I never worked directly for my father, not until way on in my career. It was an opportunity provided, to have the job, and I was expected to go work. So I could either go work there or, he'd find some other place, but I was going to work. He wasn't going to let me sit around. The fact that he was involved in the company was good enough. I just needed to go do it. No, I was far removed from what he was doing.
Around the house, do you remember your dad talking about the business around the dinner table? And did you ever pick up some of the knowledge of business and the construction world from that?
Yeah, there's no question. I don't know how to explain that, but it was a very small company, and the dinner table discussions were often about the business. My mother loved the business, and she was very, very supportive of my father, and they had an outstanding relationship, and they talked about those things every night almost. And I would see my father, spend time with us and hug us and kiss us and say our prayers, put us to bed. And then if I ever got up at night and, went to get a water or something, he'd be at the dining room table over a set of plans, estimating a project. So, it was always around.
So when did most of the growth of the company happen, if you had to pick like a decade?
I haven't given that a lot of thought. The company is, over 75 years old. It was founded in 1940. That's a long time, 8 decades. So everybody who, there's probably been 5 to 7 different presidents in the company. And I'd say all of us have had our impact at different times.
So going back to your dad a little bit, what do you think, if you could, I know it's kind of hard to say to pick one, but what do you think the best lesson you ever learned from him was that really influences who you are today?
Well, he was such a good father and eventually such a good friend that there's no way I could just say that there's one, which is the most important thing I learned from him. But
yeah,
since this is a business topic that we're talking about, he obviously taught me the work, and that work is a noble thing. It's a good thing. It's an important part of life. It's something you should enjoy. He and my grandfather both had said that, you should find a job that you truly enjoy, and you should enjoy it so much that you would do it whether you were paid or not.
Yep.
Obviously, early on when you're working on sanitary lines, that's not it. But, I eventually learned that I truly did like all of the different complications of our industry, and I have been lucky enough to say I loved it. And they usually said, when you go home at night, you should be able to say, I can't believe they paid me. I'd have done it for free.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I really have felt that way. I really loved it.
Comparing knowledge gained from life experience like work versus knowledge gained from schooling, how would you rate your schooling preparation for career and job versus the life preparation?
I am a huge proponent of on-the-job training and, learning in the industry. I was never a good student, and one of the biggest fights I had with my father was that I didn't want to go to college at all. I wanted to stay in the field. He had put me out there, and I'd learned and I'd liked it, and so I just begged him to let me stay out there and work my way up. I could be a carpenter and then a foreman and then a superintendent, and eventually could come back into the office and make a difference. And I was absolutely right. I could have done it that way, and it still can be done that way. But going to college and any other high school education, what you're doing is you're learning how to learn. Mm-hmm. It's not so much that you're learning what you're going to do the rest of your life.
You went to Auburn for college. How did you decide to go there?
That's the only school Dad said he'd pay for.
Well, that's one way to do it.
That's pretty much it. As I said, I didn't really want to go to college. My college dreams were around playing football. I really would love to have played football. And for many reasons, I'm fortunate that didn't work out. I ended up with a couple of knee operations, and all that did was make me even more sour about going to college.
Yeah.
So since I couldn't play football, why go?
So did you play football in high school?
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Are you an Auburn football fan? Is that a big part of your life?
No, not anymore. I love playing, but I'm just not a good spectator. I've always felt like, why would you go watch someone else do something when you could go do something yourself?
Yeah.
I'm just not a good spectator. I enjoy the social life around it sometimes, and I could go out and walk behind my bird dogs, or I could go sit in 100,000 people and watch a game.
Yeah, right. So from college, what do you think your favorite subject was that you took at Auburn?
It was funny when I was in school, and again, because I had such a great opportunity to be mentored into work, I would work on a sewage treatment plant, for example, and I was a part of the team doing the layout. So we're doing the surveying. And then I would go back to Auburn and take a surveying class. And it was very frustrating because they would do it differently.
Yeah.
There was one story where I got a bad grade. I got an F on a project because I had done it the way I saw it actually done in the field. And the man marked up my survey and showed me how wrong I was. And I said, well, I just worked on a project with the largest engineering company in the country at that time, Lockwood Green, and they drew it this way. And he just said, I don't care what they did. This is the way it's done. And so I had to do the project all over again. I at least, instead of getting an F, he allowed me to redo my project. So we had an argument. At the end of the day, the same thing happened. I came home over Christmas break, and I worked in the office, and I estimated a project. They needed my help. It's a funnier story, but a man called from the office and said, can you come home and work on a bid team? We got to bid a project in Mississippi. I said, no, sir, I'm sorry, I can't. This girl invited me to go snow skiing, and she's really good looking. I'm going snow skiing. He said, oh, okay, I get it, and hung up. And it wasn't 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. It was my father, and he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, this girl invited me to go snow skiing. He said, tell her no, you got to come home and bid the job. Said, okay. So I went home, and we bid the job. We came in second, and I went back to Auburn and took an estimating class.
Yeah.
So it was always frustrating. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, right. Did you have any professors at Auburn that really influenced your work life now?
There was a business law professor that I enjoyed. His name was Mike Shannon. He owned a construction company. He hired me and let me work for him on a home building crew. And I was also in his class. And he was practical, and you were able to talk real life business situations versus all the other professors who cared more about theory.
Yeah.
You sound like a proponent of maybe more young people skipping, or this idea of them going to college is a must and them skipping college to learn trades. Talk a little bit about that. Do you think that's a reasonable thing for our society to re-embrace?
Absolutely. Now, a college education is hard to argue with, so I don't want to say that I'm against college. That's not right. But not everybody is made for college. And what's a shame is that I think we over-promote that to the point where some people are frustrated, and they would be like me. They just don't enjoy it. They don't want to be in school for 4 years. Like me, I was probably so ADD, it was hard to concentrate long enough to sit in school. So you can get a high school diploma and go to work in the construction industry and make a great career, make a lot of money, and have an excellent life. It's like being on a football team. You have lots of competition, you have lots of camaraderie, you have lots of teamwork. You accomplish important goals together, and you do that through your skills, each one different from the other. One's a carpenter, one's a concrete finisher, one's a surveyor, but they all work together to make it happen. It's really a beautiful thing. And I can tell you that I've got 2 daughters who have master's degrees, and they come out of school and make $30,000 a year if they're lucky right out of college.
Yeah.
I can have people who went to, high school that work with us, and they're making $150,000 now.
Yeah.
So it's unfair that people have lost their interest in the trades.
It's a common theme with the people we've talked to doing these interviews, this exact same point, and they always bring it up. And I think, if there's one thing that's like, it could change somebody's life, somebody who's on the fringe of deciding to go to college, and then they do realize that they can have this career, that a different career path than what their high school prof is telling them that they should do. It's kind of an interesting way to change people's lives.
If somebody truly has the opportunity to go to college, it's hard to say that's a bad idea. The issue becomes, can they get in? Can they succeed there? Or can they afford to go? Or will they graduate with, some degree that they don't necessarily like or want, and they've got a lot of student debt? That's not necessarily a great way to start your career. And
yeah, right.
To say, well, I've got a diploma, but I've got $100,000 in debt. So I think the high schools need to learn to understand each student and what's best for each student's situation, and realize there really are a lot of careers out there that don't require college education.
Do you find a shortage of skilled trades, labor for skilled trades, because everyone goes to college? Do you think you see that?
Absolutely. The industry has changed dramatically, and it's going to be, worse and worse. I don't think we want to get into a lot of political discussions, but
no.
You've got immigration laws that are of interest. Then you have trade schools that used to be involved. So much more. Even in high school, there were trade schools and things that were taught in the high schools, and then the overall theory that college is so important, we got to get everybody that education, and that's just not for everybody.
Yep.
And then there's the willingness to get out and do the hard work versus I can have a job somewhere in an air-conditioned environment versus being outside in the elements.
Yeah.
People just look at that. Personally, I'd rather be outside.
Yeah. So knowing some of that stuff, where do you guys go to recruit people? Do you go to high schools and look for people coming straight out of high school? Do you go to college job fairs? Do you look to labor organizations? What do you guys do?
Well, it's all of the above. Of course, you depend a lot on your trade partners, the different companies you contract with, but you also, do all of the above. It's at the end of the day, it usually ends up being a personal network.
Yeah.
Our people know somebody who knows somebody, and we're constantly trying to recruit people that way.
I read somewhere that you guys have a pretty in-depth training program there at Hoar. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're trying to make it even more in-depth. Like everything, it's a process that you have to keep improving. We want to have a world-class training program is the way we define it, and we're still doing a lot of study around that now. It involves mentoring, and it involves, repeated classes about technical issues. Most of it is for, in the field, it becomes more mentoring of who you're working with and how you absolutely, are learning from that coach on the job, that superintendent who's telling you what to do every day. But in the office, and, we're always training around contracting and legal and insurance and people skills, and we try to have something probably every other week, at least once a month in these offices, and we share them across the country through video conference and recording. The Book of Proverbs is the book that we read in leadership council. It is not required of every employee. What I say to them, and I teach that class, is, I think what's important is that the Book of Proverbs was written thousands of years ago, and if you read it cover to cover, you start realizing that what was written thousands of years ago applies very clearly today to how you treat other people. That's what what we've said all along is it's a people business. Mentoring, connectivity, all these kinds of things are important. So if treating people properly is important, if integrity is important, if work ethic is important, if saving money and spending less than you make is important, if modeling good behavior is important, if being wise and, having, good thought is important, if counseling is important, if discipline or self-control is important, well, why not read the Book of Proverbs? It's all in there.
Yeah, right.
Every bit of it is in there over and over again. A really wise man, once said, wise men seek wise counsel. What does that mean? Why would you go off and act on your own trying to be a hero when you're surrounded with people who have experience.
Yep.
Go get the experience, talk it out, think it through, come to the best plan, and then move on. Why would you ignore that?
Yeah.
It's well said.
Sometimes it's hard to put training programs together when the best type of training is hands-on mentorship type training. Have you guys tried to formalize that in any way, shape, or form, or tried to document that type of training program when that's a difficult way to do it?
Yes, we have. I would say, again, we need to improve it, but we have a documented mentoring program, and when someone comes in the office, they're supposed to be given a relationship and a mentor who they can talk to, and sometimes it's a cross network, and sometimes the person doesn't necessarily even know what's happening.
Yeah.
Here's your mentor, follow Bob. It's more about we connect them with people in their job all across the country where they can say, how do I solve this problem? And they feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling Bob.
Yeah.
So we have done a really good job of connecting people. That is mentoring. When you have someone that you are comfortable enough to say, I'm not sure, what do I do? Or how do I advance my career?
Yeah.
And we speak about that. We have a very disciplined orientation process. When people come to work, they go through an orientation. We start from day one asking them to participate and take the lead in their learning process.
Mentorship is very dependent on the relationship between the two people. Have you ever had situations where two people just don't click and you've had to switch who their mentor is?
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time.
Does it?
Yeah, I'll tell you a great story that I'm overstepping my bounds a little bit to tell this, but I think I'll get some grace from the person I'm talking about. But we believe in mentoring so much. There's a program called Cristo Rey. It's a Catholic program, a Catholic school that focuses on getting their high school students in the job field. And it's Holy Family Cristo Rey.
Okay.
And we had a young man who came into the office and very shy, very quiet, maybe felt like he didn't fit in here. And one of our vice presidents noticed it and said, this isn't going to work, unless you have a mentor. You can't just put them in the office and then hope they learn something. Somebody's got to help them. So he took it on himself and began to mentor this young man. And the next thing you know, they have a deep relationship. And he worked with him through high school. Then he ends up actually helping him go to college and get a degree. And the young man goes to college and now works for Hoar.
Wow.
And he's got a bright future because somebody took an interest in him.
Yeah.
You're right. It absolutely is hard to be a good mentor.
Yeah. So tell us about some of your mentors at Hoar. Who do you think influenced you the most moving up the company?
Well, we've already talked about my father, and he had the opportunity to do that so often. And what I love so much about him is he wanted to be with me. He gave me a lot of time, and it didn't matter what it was, but he really always made me feel loved because he wanted to be with me. So, that was a wonderful thing that you can't compare or can't compete with. But in the office, there were men who at first I either disagreed with their style or maybe we didn't click very well. But over time, you just start learning to respect what they're doing and how they do it. And I wanted to learn from them. Bobby Keith being an example that our styles were different. He was very demanding, kind of in your face, pushy person, get things done with a sense of urgency right now. Was quick to want to tell you how to do it. And that didn't sit well with me. But what I learned is Bobby taught me that there's always a better way to do things, and you better stop and think about it, or you'll just keep doing what you've always done.
Yeah.
And, a sense of urgency in the construction industry is vital.
Yeah.
And everything is about time and money and schedule and deadlines, and anything you can get done now is a whole lot better than getting it done later. So those kind of lessons come hard sometimes. And somebody, who maybe is pushing you in an uncomfortable way or demanding more of you or expecting more of you, it's actually a compliment because they think you can do it.
Right.
While at the moment you might be irritated. You look back later and go, well, you know what, if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. So growing up with your dad and the company, obviously family businesses, there are a lot of great things that come along with them. We're in a family business, but there are also some struggles that come along. Did you ever have any major struggles or conflict between you and your dad?
We had to get the rules straight early.
Yeah.
One of the things that is a funny story was, as families do, I had two older sisters, and families often fight, and it wasn't uncommon to one of us to be irritated with the other, but one of my sisters had done something I was terribly irritated with, and I had run by my father's home at lunch to pick something up. So I'm right out of college. My dad is on the phone with my sister, and I guess they had been discussing what a bad person I'd been. Anyway, he kind of wags his finger at me and says, "Come over here." And I walk over there, and he says, "You need to get on the phone and apologize to your sister." And I just turned and walked away. So I went down and got my stuff, walked back through. He's still on the phone. He says, "Get over here." And I said, well, he said, "You need to get on the phone and apologize to your sister." And I said, "I'm not sorry, and I'm not apologizing. I'm going back to work." And he said, "You get on the phone and apologize or you're fired."
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Well, good, I'm fired." And I walked out. The next day, I didn't go to work, and he called me at home and said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm looking for a job." And he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I've got an interview down in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm going to look for a job." And he said, "Get in here." And I said, "No, I'm not doing that." And he said, "Please come in here and talk to me." And I went in there, and we sat down over his desk, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not going to live this way. Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, I'm not going to live in an environment where I'm, have my life dictated to me over work." And he said, "You're right. I'm sorry. We can't let the lines cross." And I said, "No, work is work and family's family." He said, "You're right. I'm sorry." I said, "All right, never mind. Forget it." And we never had another problem.
Wow.
Yeah, those are tricky things that you have to iron out. And I think the longer you let it go without ironing that stuff out, the harder it becomes to get on the same page.
One of the fundamentals in life is being able to say, "I'm sorry," and move on, right?
And that's true.
We have a lot of families in our company that have worked together for a long time, brothers, husbands, wives. I mean, there are a lot of family teams in this company, and I think they all figure out over time that we don't need to go home and talk about work, and we don't need to come to the office and talk about what's bugging us at home.
Yep.
We have a segment where we give you a topic, and then you tell us whether you think the topic is overrated or underrated. Overrated or underrated? Charles Barkley as a social commentator.
That's unfair. Overrated.
Overrated. Let's see. Overrated, underrated, completing the Robert Trent Jones Trail.
I think that's good. I think it's a well-rated thing that people should try.
Have you played them all?
No, I've played several of them. There's quite a few of them that are absolutely beautiful. Some are average, but if you love golf, I mean, again, it's about getting outdoors in a beautiful environment with friends.
Yep.
How can you top that?
Yeah, that's true. Do you play golf on a regular basis?
Not anymore. I do like golf, and what I miss is the camaraderie. And as I said, what a great way to do that.
Yep.
Overrated or underrated? The Birmingham Barons.
They're underrated. That's a good program with good ownership. It is a fun experience. Baseball is not always about winning and losing in championships. It's just kind of an American pastime to go out and enjoy the park.
Did you go to games when Michael Jordan played there?
Actually, I did. That was fun.
They're a White Sox affiliate, so they're always bringing up news whenever guys are down there for a rehab stint or whenever there's an upcoming prospect. So we keep in touch with the Birmingham Barons up here too.
Good.
That was a painful couple of years when we watched Michael Jordan play baseball. I mean, we missed him on the Bulls.
What's your favorite restaurant in Birmingham?
Hot and Hot Fish Club.
What kind of food is that?
Oh, I don't know how to describe that. It's an American fare. He tries to take local Southern style and put it into an elegant fare that is interesting and presented, sort of an eclectic way. He's an excellent chef. Does a good job.
We're going to jump back to some questions about your work life a little bit. And if someone wants to get into an upper management position, what overachievements should they spend their time on? So what types of things do you think are really important for someone to focus on or learn to be in an upper management position?
Reading. I think there's so much to learn. We're talking about our industry. The construction industry is full of highly technical issues, and what's interesting is we promote somebody who has excelled at a particular job, which may have a singular focus, like a superintendent or a project manager, but they've spent a lot of time being really good at that particular role. But the next role has got accounting and legal and insurance and finance and managing people. So how do you plan, implement, motivate, and manage a whole team of people to do what you used to do?
Yeah.
That's a different skill that isn't taught in college and is often taught wrong in the business. So you can read everything from just management books to Harvard Business Review is what I did. I feel like I got an MBA from Harvard. I read every single magazine that came out, tried to figure out a way to apply it. So you have to never stop learning, and all of that takes extra effort after work. You do your normal job, and then you have to go learn how to do the job you want next.
Do you have a book or two that you've read in the last year that you would recommend?
The last couple of years, I haven't read a business book that I would recommend, but we do have a training program here that we call a Leadership Council. It is a leadership development program that we think makes a big difference. In that program, we have a combination of books they're all required to read. So John Maxwell leadership books. The very first book that they have to read is the Book of Proverbs out of the Bible.
Okay.
And we teach that. We encourage lots of reading around, the 21 laws of leadership. We combine a lot of reading, a lot of classes, a few lectures, some travel. But we have a 2-year program for about 8 or 10 people that earn the right to be in that program. And reading is a huge piece of it.
We noticed that you guys have a chaplain on staff, going back to the Book of Proverbs. How did that come about? When did that get started? Was that something you started, or was that something your dad started, or has that always been part of Hoar?
No, that wasn't always a part of Hoar. It was something that I started, and it's actually been done in a couple of different ways. There are a lot of things you run into that are unexpected. I've had people call me about their marriages. I've had people call me about their family issues and some unbelievable issues that I was not qualified to counsel them.
Yeah.
And while I tried and I loved them and I cared and I did the best I could, I always knew I was over my head. I wasn't the right person for them to talk to, and I always tried to get them to get the right help. Just giving our employees avenues to where they can get the help they need. Everybody is human and everybody has problems in life, and not everybody wants to, let you know I have a problem. We try to provide a lot of different avenues where people can go and seek help. We went through a program that was a contracted chaplaincy all over the country. So every division and every job site had access to multiple chaplains. It's called marketplace chaplains.
Okay.
And, anybody can sign up with that group. You pay a fee and they'll connect with you all over the country with a network of chaplains. And that was what I thought worked the best. Truth is, it's a very hard thing to do because people still, their faith is personal, and they want to connect with who they want to connect with. It's not necessarily just because you have someone standing in the lobby.
Yeah. Do you feel that gets utilized by your employees quite a bit?
Not anymore. We found it was about a 50-50. We did surveys for many, many years about it, trying to make sure that we did what the people wanted us to do, not just what I wanted to do. And so we stopped that program because it was 50-50. It was, some people liked it and some people didn't, and we decided it was unfair to push it out there if there was enough people that just didn't use it or didn't want it.
Yeah.
But we do provide avenues to where they can connect with other chaplaincies, and they can connect through, we have a program called Ceridian, and they can get online. They can quickly find the phone number and get free counseling if they need it.
Okay. With offices in different locations, how do you maintain a similar culture in those offices than you do in your home office?
Well, we've worked really hard at that, and I think that's vital. And I would say that's not every company is good at that. Each office can end up being like a different company. So it starts with the way we hire people. Again, we have orientation, and we explain how people, should act at Hoar, and that goes, we teach in great detail what we call our core values, and then we preach that all the time. And so we're starting with a base level of hiring people that we think like us and want to be the kind of company we are. And then we have leadership that has grown up. Most of the leaders of all of our divisions, are, with one exception, have had 20-year careers here at Hoar.
Oh, wow.
So that is important to the culture.
How did you go about developing your core values for Hoar?
We spent about 3 days kind of locked away in a room with the executives at that time. It was in about 2000, I think, so maybe 2001. And we all sat around with a moderator who, we just kept talking about what's important to us and, what did we want to be about. And we each wrote a news article. Was one of the exercises of, 20 years from now, what would you want people to write in a news article about our company? And so we each wrote that article, and then we each read them, and then we each talked about what that meant. And what was interesting was we didn't focus on, money or growth or profit, and we focused on, who we want to be and how we want to act. After that exercise, we decided that on 4 core values, and then we decided we were not going to just have that as a sticker on the wall. So we spent about 3 months. Each of us wrote a definition to what that core value meant. So, for example, something simple, the golden rule. Everybody knows the golden rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But now, what does it really mean to you and to others? And how do we treat people the way you want to be treated? Everybody might have a different answer to that. We dove deeply into the definitions of respecting others, and it worked really well for us. So, golden rule, family-oriented, relentless pursuit of improvement, these things all came out as our core values.
So we got a couple other just kind of like lifestyle rapid-fire questions. What's your favorite shotgun?
I don't own my favorite shotgun. It's too expensive.
Okay, so what's the dream shotgun, and then what's your favorite that you own?
Well, there's all these great European handmade shotguns that would be, wonderful to own and collect, and it's great. It's like jewelry, I guess. But I shoot a over and under 410 Beretta.
Okay, very nice. I shoot a over under Silver Pigeon too, Beretta.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Most important that you have a gun that fits. Doesn't matter. Every one of them will work if it fits and you like it.
So how many hours a night do you sleep?
Well, I've learned my lesson. Sleep is important. For years, I thought it was overrated, as you say. But, I'm probably about 6 to 8 hours now. In my past, I took pride in the fact that I could work all night long, and all I needed was 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, man.
What age did you do that till?
Most of my life.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's probably the last 5 years that I really started realizing that is not good for you.
Do you get a workout regime?
I usually would try to go at lunch, and that's difficult for me, but I have a trainer I meet with and try to go 3 days a week, and then on weekends we usually walk a lot, or if we're on vacation, maybe go on a hike.
I'm walking through the hunting field.
Well, it's not always hunting, but even in the summer, I'll take a walk in the national forest, or I'll walk around the farm, or I love getting out walking.
Do you have a favorite website you check every morning?
I wouldn't call it favorite, but I get my news from the New York Times, and so every day I'll check the Times or the Journal and go through those.
Do you have a favorite quote that you have like in your office?
Like I said, there's a lot of great quotes in Proverbs. But one of the ones I remember actually was a friend of mine had it on his desk, and it was a little plaque that said, "Poor results plus excuses do not equal good results."
Mm-hmm. Got a favorite movie you would recommend in the past couple of years?
Recently watched the series on Vietnam, the Ken Burns series. It's been on public. It's about a 10-hour commitment, I think, but very well done, deep history lesson on what happened in Vietnam, starting in 1850. Very well done.
Yeah, he tends to make really good, really long stuff.
Yeah, they're always long, but that's a long topic that deserved more. If people understood history, they might not have repeated the same mistakes. So
Yeah.
What's something that you think you believe that few others do, like a thought that is contrary to popular opinion?
Well, I'm considered a conservative person.
Okay.
Yet I'm not opposed to raising my taxes. I think what's interesting about that whole debate is just that we've had 2 wars and a Great Recession, and those are our bullets and our missiles, and we lose sight on the fact that it's our country and I have to pay for it. So
Yeah.
I think we need some middle ground in America these days to where you find the right way to balance. And it's just so frustrating that people can't find middle ground and agree to compromise, because there is an answer.
Yeah.
In the construction industry, is a fantastic industry that is always fun, always changing, always interesting. You can build an office building out in the suburb, and you could build the exact same building next door, literally the exact same building, and it will not be the same experience. It will be different. You'll have different problems, different issues, different team members. And it is just an ever-changing industry that is in desperate need of some revolution. It's still a very old-fashioned industry that in many ways is siloed. And we like to say that it's a broken industry that needs repair. And we want to be a part of the fix. We're having a lot of fun trying to revolutionize how buildings will get built in the future, and we're thinking that through. So it's a great industry you can get into in many different angles, many different ways, and you can make a big difference while being a part of a fun team. So
Yep.
I highly encourage people to be a part of it.
Yep.
Is a certain kind of building more exciting for you to build, or is it just the teamwork and the process in general that is fun and exciting?
Our industry is kind of wrought with people who have big egos and want to point to the big buildings they built,
Yeah.
So it's always fun for every single person in our industry likes to drive by and say, "Gee, look at that, we built that." So yeah, it's a lot of fun for us to say we built, the rock and roller coaster for Disney. Those kind of things are really cool. And we do get involved with fun, emotional projects like Children's Hospital in Alabama, where it's a beautiful building that changed the landscape, but it has a huge impact on the lives of children. You get to learn a lot about different industries. You get to be a part of, my father built a Coca-Cola bottling plant, and I remember being in the plant as a young man and seeing how glass was made. And I thought that is really neat. So
Yeah.
we built an Airbus facility where they assemble commercial airplanes, airliners. It's fascinating to learn and to see how all that is done. At the end of the day, the process of building them is usually pretty similar.
Yep.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Conversations Around the Corner, produced by WallProtects, the designer and manufacturer of wall protection products for healthcare, hospitality, or any commercial building. Be sure to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher and tune in next week where we will have another conversation around the corner.